NetCredit is here to say yes to a personal loan or line of credit when other lenders say no. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partner. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and are all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Content warning for discussions of child exploitation.
Someplace underneath.
Yeah, I think I fell down another toxic Instagram hole. Like, I saw one that was like, hey, this military man I met, you have a 1-year-old. And all the comments were other guys being like, I think you mean you have a 1-year-old. Ha ha. You have sex without a condom. That's what you get.
Oh, you mean a lady was telling the father that he had a baby on the internet?
Yeah, it's like a Hail Mary of like, they might have already been married. The internet's full of lies.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That sounds like too much for me.
But I was just scrolling through all the comment section and I was like, Lord God, please keep me away from a man like this.
Yes, please. I say a little prayer for you.
Right.
I also would like that for you.
Yeah, I thought the birth rate was on decline. Why is everybody so mad that
know,
there's
you
another
don't want-
baby? It's not being taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they hate you. They just hate you. They hate you. They hate women. They hate
Yay.
smiles.
Welcome to Someplace Underneath.
I'm Natalie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson.
That's honestly all of that can usually just be boiled down is that they feel really...
Yeah, it's like rage. It's rage when we don't have kids. It's rage when you do have kids and the dad's not around and the person that's stuck around. It's like, why do have these things called daddy issues when you're blaming it on the person who stuck around?
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately reasoning it out is never going to... It's only going to give you belly aches because there is no reasoning. It's just anger. It's just anger. All of it.
Yeah, I think there's like a mass psychosis of anger going on around the world.
Yeah, you know, we have this whole discussion around the male loneliness epidemic, and it's obviously complicated, but it's definitely a huge issue right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely been talking that out a lot in therapy, and it helps to talk about it. It's like... It's a thing that we all need to address and deal with, but it is not an easy answer.
No, there's no like just flip the light switch on. There's no easy
unfortunately.
Solution. Although I do think we should have an opposite COVID lockdown. It should be everybody come out of their house to the park and we're all going to play games. We're going to play Red Rover, Red Rover.
I mean, I love that. Unfortunately, COVID still does occur.
Right.
But we are now all past. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about regulations. I know nothing. We are doing group activities again. That's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, we're going to play Pin the Tail and the Donkey.
For the psyche.
Yeah, for the psyche, for the community. And then if, we get to understand each other more. Because I see that you wrote about Tim Tebow, the football player. And I didn't know who the hell he was either. And I was like, what's this man speaking about male issues?
Yeah.
That's like with such poignancy.
Well, we should start off probably like, no, we didn't expect to start this episode talking about Tim Tebow. I did not ever.
No.
If you would have put that in my predictions, I would have been like, I only vaguely know of that man because he's really staunchly pro-life and he plays a sport. And why would I be thinking him? That's weird. But here we are. Isn't life grand? Isn't it a thrill and an adventure? I don't agree with much of what Tim Tebow says, and we're talking about this because it's going to play into what we're talking about later today. And I do believe he just objectively is incorrect about women's autonomy and the way he talks about it. But he went on a show recently of a guy. I don't know who the guy is. His name is Sean Ryan. I think it's called The Sean Ryan Show. I know nothing about him. But, you know, the background alone on the show when I was looking at the clips is enough usually that I would just go like, huh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
The Spidey sense.
Yeah, it's like really dark. There's like scotch bottles. It's like the kind of guy who was like going to sun his taint, like red pill stuff, right?
Yeah, lots of lazy boy furniture.
Yeah, just like bright neon red, just as masculine, never had a gay thought in their lives. You know, just, you know, when you look at it, it's just, ooh, these are straight men.
Yeah. I want to suck their dicks. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
Good. I'm glad.
No.
So
Why'd I say that? Whatever. Let's keep going. My fucking brain.
I mean, you're allowed to be horny. It's fine.
No, I don't want to suck their dicks. I don't know why I said that. It's kind of like you can't. It's like I want to go learn at a gun range, but my biggest problem is I have such intrusive.
Yeah.
I can't be saying shit like that. You can't be funny at a gun range.
No, probably not. It's like, you know, you could make jokes maybe, but there's a lot of weapons like just really close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just right there.
Yeah. But this is like gun
this
range.
guy definitely has guns in that room. In that interview, I know for sure there were guns somewhere on that wall. But yeah, this guy. So Tim Tebow, who is a football man, I know that he was on this show, and I found myself shocked by what he was saying on the show. I found this clip not for seeking it out, but it was being spread around by a lot of different people because of what Tim Tebow is saying. And I'm not really interested in learning much about Sean Ryan, but I'm mostly interested in the message that was being shared to an audience who doesn't hear this often, if ever. So let's listen to this clip of Tim Tebow speaking on this show.
The number one offender type is biological fathers, but by far it is being done by middle-aged Caucasian men. Many, over half of them, college graduates. Many of them are educated, good jobs. This isn't just who we're thinking about. Like they're you know, technical savvy, and I think that it is time that we call them out. Like that. We can't stand by and stand back. Like we have to stand up and say, not only are we not doing our job as men, it's actually the opposite. Instead of being defenders and protectors of our families, we're hurting and abusing.
And he's right, and thank God a man said it. Because I'll do things like, you know, hike the Grand Canyon alone, and people are like, what? You could die. And I'm like, statistically, if I got married and stayed at home, that's where I would die, not on the side of a mountain.
It's true. Statistically, you're correct. And I wish I didn't feel so stunned at this admission, but obviously you can hear by his language he's right-wing, and that's, you know, his prerogative. He's conservative. But so few men in this sphere, that sphere that he's in, are willing to acknowledge this. And I mean, obviously it's partially because some of them are in the statistic that Tim Tebow just mentioned. But even if they're not doing the things he's talking about, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that white American middle-aged men are one of the hugest demographics of CSAM.
Or they'll just blame the mom. Should have picked better. Why'd you had sex without a condom? Why'd you do that?
Yes, on social media and the comment sections for sure. Yes, for sure. And that's definitely a huge issue as well. So I don't agree with Tim Tebow on very much, if anything at all, except for, you know, what he just said. But I will take this W and be glad that he reached this audience that we never are going to be reaching. Those guys who are watching that show are not going to listen to us. And so I'm thanking Tim Tebow for talking to them about this, because it's hard for a lot of these guys to hear it. And while I'm grateful, it's almost comedic when you go to these clips and go look at the responses from the viewers of who would normally be a viewer of the Sean Ryan show, because the people responding are saying stuff like, "What? Why is no one talking about this? Why isn't someone doing something?" And I want to both laugh and like pull my hair out at the roots at the same time, because people are talking about it a lot. But another comment that I saw repeated over and over again in the comment sections of clips of this Tim Tebow interview is stuff that says along the lines of, see, this is why they came after Tim Ballard and Russell Brand.
Ew.
Which woof, man. I guess it's really hard to parse through these ideas and these thoughts, because if you have to look at these really ugly truths critically, it becomes really hard. And I think people who are not necessarily people who would ingest things from like women or feminists and stuff like that, who are Sean Ryan show listeners, they might not really critically understand at the get-go the difference between Tim Tebow sharing this message and Tim Ballard doing hero tourism while raping women. And I think that is what we're going to call cognitive dissonance, that they hear this message and the first thing they go to is, this is why they want to silence Tim Ballard. And again, I don't know.
Who is they?
I don't know. And I wish that they actually would consider and listen to what happened with Tim Ballard, because they would find that the victims are all very conservative right-wing mothers, and that a lot of conservative right-wing people have denounced Tim Ballard. But we're in a cult of personality here. So unfortunately, what I'm saying about the people consuming this, I'm glad they're hearing this message, but the call is coming from inside the house, dummies. Like, I don't know what else to say. One message, the Tim Tebow message is asking men to hold each other accountable. The Tim Ballard message is, at the very least, spreading xenophobia, spreading disinformation about what child abuse looks like most of the time, and even what the definition of human trafficking is. Tim Tebow's message is certain not to get a financial reward. Ballard's has made him extravagantly wealthy through lying and literally using propaganda. I mean, Sound of Freedom is textbook propaganda.
It just sounds like propaganda. The Sound of Freedom. It sounds like a billboard you'd see in communist China or something.
Yes. And it is just using Americanized, dog whistly kind of patriotic gobbledygook. Just flag songs of cowboy prairies.
It's always the people that think they can't fall for propaganda, usually falling for it the most. That's why I have to constantly check myself, because I don't want to fall for that shit.
But it's good because we all, again, we've said it before, we all can fall for propaganda, and it's important to constantly be challenging what you're consuming and checking things. And I'm guilty of not doing that all the time. I try to, though, and I think there is just, it's important to the human existence to just constantly be rechecking for that, because there are people who want to make money off of you. So if you want to argue that I'm only coming after Tim Ballard or doing this series because of politics, I'm on the other end of the spectrum in nearly every way from Tebow, but I am grateful for him today. And somebody like him, his money, by most accounts that I've found, actually goes to a number of good causes, and he uses his own money. He's not manipulating others to get money that is then being used for ulterior purposes. Tebow is doing some hard work here instead of peacocking around, strutting, doing a savior LARP and fantasizing about how, I'm talking about Ballard, is going to be Lord of the Earth someday. So we've been talking a little bit about Ballard's LARP, and, that in itself OUR is really harmful because of that. But unfortunately, it's only one layer of the corruption trifle. So when we last left you, we were discussing the case of the missing Haitian child, Gardy Marty, who was the son of a man named Guesno, who was an LDS priesthood holder. Gardy was actually born in Utah, but they were living in Haiti at the time. So his son, Guesno's son, Gardy, was likely kidnapped by a friend of the family in 2009 at barely the age of a toddler. So most reports see a guy on a bike who they think was a family friend take him in 2009. But shortly after this, unfortunately, in the beginning of 2010, there was a massive earthquake in Haiti. And natural disasters famously both halt criminal cases and then create new ones, like we see with with COVID, with Katrina, all of these natural disasters and these social issues then human trafficking becomes a bigger issue, and all of these cases get kind of thrown by the wayside, in every place, like the U.S., of course, and everything too. So unfortunately, shortly after Gardy was taken, they had this huge crisis in Haiti, and probably the Marty family kind of suffered in that. Like the case became
because they're like, help me find this missing child, and they're like, we have hospitals to build,
right. And also, I mean, even the Martys, like their house collapsed, I believe. Like they went through all of this stuff too. It's like what an awful time period for them.
And then there were scammers in Haiti taking the money. They didn't give it back to the people.
Yeah, there's that. There's so many different people just coming to take advantage of impoverished countries. It's really cool.
Finding the music you love shouldn't be hard. That's why Pandora makes it easy to explore all your favorites and discover new artists and genres you'll love. Enjoy a personalized listening experience simply by selecting any song or album, and we'll make a station crafted just for you. Best of all, you can listen for free. Download Pandora on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start hearing the soundtrack to your life.
Next Level Pet people will do anything for their dogs. That means treating them with next-level protection from parasites with NexGard Plus, afoxolaner, moxidectin, and parental chewable tablets. NexGard Plus chews provide one-and-done monthly protection against fleas, ticks, heartworm disease, roundworms, and hookworms, all in a tasty beef-flavored chew. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive. Ask your vet about NexGard Plus Chews.
So after this has all happened, they're still looking for Gardy. Enter Tim Ballard. So this is a review of what we had been talking about last week. Another fantastic resource if you would like a clear, easy to follow written narrative with more information and details of this story of Gardy Marty is the Substack of a woman named Dr. Laura Robinson. Her Substack is called Not Peer Reviewed, and she does a really good breakdown and extensive look at Gardy Marty's story. So when Tim picked up this pet project, the most vulnerable of the Haitian population, which are children, he wasn't the first guy to step in there and sort of do this hero stuff out there. They're regularly falling victim to white saviorism, hero tourism. It's not exclusive to Tim Ballard or even the LDS Church. It is, most American churches really heavily participate in that. And that involves varying levels. So if you want to look at white saviorism or hero tourism, it's basically varying levels of service being done for orphanages, usually in less wealthy countries, often corrupt governments or rich American missionaries and other groups. It's not all churches can go and play helper where the kids are kind of trotted out and you take pictures and you hug them and you sing them songs and you give them crackers. And of course, there's some good that can come from those trips. And there are missions that actually build buildings for them and all that. But in many situations, and I believe Tim falls squarely in here, it's a lot more about serving the tourist's ego and giving the tourist and the missionary a feeling that they did a help.
Right. It was like Tom's shoes. Remember, they were like, if you buy a pair of our shoes, we'll give a pair of shoes to a poor, starving African child. But Africa already has cobblers and people that make shoes.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
It took those business, those
really?
people out of business.
Oh, wow. That's fun. I didn't know anything about that. I remember hearing that about Tom's shoes, but I didn't follow any of that. But yeah, that's a thing too. So the aid that sometimes is provided to a country like that is not necessarily what they might actually need, whether or not the tourism is thinking they're helping. It's why something like what they did at the end of Sound of Freedom is so truly insidious, because this is exactly what happens sometimes in impoverished countries, which is at the end of the movie, we talked about this last week, Jim Caviezel comes at the end of the credits and goes, I know this was a traumatizing movie. It makes you feel really sad. And fortunately, there's a way to help. You scan the QR code, and you buy tickets for our movie, you give them away. And then bingo bango, oh, look, you've done a help. You've helped now. You've helped us children. When in reality, you're left with a sense of accomplishment. Oh, I did this thing to help. when all you did was actually line the pockets of already rich men by buying tickets of their movie.
And then someone else tries to go see the movie and they're like, all the tickets have been bought out, but nobody's here. Looks like they want to conspiratize.
Right,
Like, no,
same.
you guys did it. You shot yourself on the foot.
Yes, that as well in there. And so, yes, it definitely is harmful in that way, that you're kind of creating this entire industry around yourself that is the perception of helping, but in fact is just taking money in, which is kind of, what I think the LDS Church is doing generally.
Money laundering.
Yeah. So Tim, growing up in LDS missionary culture, seems not to understand or pretends not to understand the self-aggrandizing purpose of what he's doing. So a lot of what he was doing initially getting involved in the Guardia Marti story was quite, I would link it to something like hero tourism. So, when our hero tourism in the U.S. in general, political actions, it's like the metaphor of it being like, our country comes and pours metaphorical gas all over Haiti, lights a match and sets everything on fire. And then we have guys like Tim who come in, pull 2 kids out of the fire, goes, "You're welcome," and then just leaves them on the edge of the fire with nowhere to go as he ascends back into an awaiting helicopter and everybody claps at him.
Yeah.
Is sort of what's happening here. So it might sound like I'm trying to blame Tim for all of the United States faults, and I'm not. I do think he's a part of that machine, but if he was just your run-of-the-mill hero tourist missionary, we wouldn't be having this series right now. When Tim decided he knew how to save the children more than anyone else, he understood it on a level that all of the other well-established human trafficking rescue companies and organizations and the government branches that have been set up, he knew way more than them. He knew he had to go on a mission to save those children. It's just not a mission that is super effective or helpful. Yeah. So
he's like a twat.
Yeah, I mean, we could just whittle this down if you want to just say that. He is 100% a twat. I don't actually know. I'm not going to call him a twat. That is an insult to a vulva. He is a stinky, sweaty taint. He is a slimy, not bathed, got scabs on it taint.
Sweaty, weirdly sweaty man? Like, what are you sweating about? What's wrong?
Well, we'll find out.
Is he on drugs?
A lot of drugs, yeah. So I mentioned Anna Merlin and Tim Marchman of Vice News last week. While the majority of us learned about OUR and Tim Ballard during that time period when we were hearing about Sound of Freedom conspiracies or hearing the news about all the lawsuits that come out, and we haven't gotten there yet, that was all in 2023, right? But Anna and Tim and Vice have been covering OUR for years leading up to that because there have been concerns about the organization from pretty much the get-go. And that is not because everyone loves human trafficking or because libs hate America or whatever internet talking point Tim and OUR want to use, but because anyone with experience in the world of child safety, human trafficking prevention, and basic, business ethics who observe OUR in action see a bunch of bright, hot, red alarm bells going off, including just the name alone, Operation Underground Railroad, already makes you sound like you might be doing something weird.
Nah, liberals just eat babies.
I mean, that too, obviously. But
we have a secret cabal in Hollywood.
All right, you got me.
You got me. I wish I went to one of those Hollywood parties. It was like I was at a Hollywood party and they worship the devil and they sacrifice kids. I was like, all they do at these Hollywood parties is ask, "What are you working on right now? Who's your manager? Do some coke." I wish
judge each other.
Super boring, actually.
Yeah. At least then if there are a level that I haven't gotten to, I'm sure there's some really fucked up, horrible people doing horrible shit at all times in Hollywood, but the Hollywood elite parties that I've been around they're just kind of douchebags.
Yeah, they're just douchey. I mean, there's the Diddy party. But
we're not doing shit like that.
No.
I mean, I've never I don't know if I would ever be invited in the first
I wouldn't be
place.
invited. No. I'd get too sleepy because then the party starts at 2 a.m.
Oh, they start at like 6 a.m., Amber.
No, I'm in my beddy time.
No, you have already been awake the entire night, and then the Diddy party starts at dawn.
Couldn't do it.
That makes me want to die. Just the thought of that makes me want to die inside.
No, and there's no coffee. No one's making a fresh brew of coffee.
No, but there's a lot of drugs, though.
There's
for sure.
drugs in the kitchen.
Yeah, but nobody's just going to have some Folgers, no.
No, why is the kitchen always the hub of drug use? I don't get it.
Is it?
Always in the kitchen.
I'm cycling back through my life. That's true. A lot of times, maybe counter space.
Yeah.
You need all the
It's
tile.
the heart of the home.
It is. Okay.
Back to these fucking guys.
Anyway, if I could just be a fly on the wall in his house, I'm so curious about his wife, but we're not close to that yet.
I bet it's just really sterile. And like one couch, one painting, picture that says like live, laugh, love. Because there's no like joy and like, let's decorate. Let's get this.
It's so hard to say. They have a bunch of kids. I think they have adopted kids. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel about his wife. I feel a lot of anger because of her obtuseness at best. But we'll get to that. Don't you worry. So right now where we are is we're talking about when Vice began covering his goings on, which was well before 2023. Not just Vice, but they were one of the circulations. What do you call this? Mm-hmm. One of the online circulations that was covering it. And there was lots of concern, including from people who weren't on what you might call liberal media. So for one of the big hot alarm bells was just the insane amount of money being raised for OUR, specifically mostly by LDS members. Tim used the church's general kind of savior superiority complex drive to get millions of dollars pumping into OUR using Gardy Marty, as well as Tim's own made-up origin story. And it just really went off like gangbangers? Gangbusters.
He was in ICE, but don't worry, there's no paper trail. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't
There's
worry.
literally no like documents saying that he did that.
He has some paper trail for some of it, but specifically his connections to CIA, it's really hard to connect any of him to. So we do know he was a part of Homeland Security, probably not on the streets that much. But we don't know because we know for sure he has made up a bunch of what he said. We don't know what he has not made up, essentially. So it's really kind of a perfect storm because all this money's pumping in and it's from members, and members would never question him. The church loves the PR of this saintly temple recommend holding, priesthood holder, missionary, graduate of BYU. They love the image of him going on and saving the world's children. In the church, the members would never dare question if this high-ranking man and the elders love him. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to look into what he's doing. Here's $1,000 of my hard-earned money. And while getting a ton of money together for aid sounds really super keen, neato, there's never any accounting of just where all of this money went. Oh, wait, there is. Now, and spoiler, it's not going towards the children. But even the most dedicated church members who were giving him money, who were taking his word, would probably have at the least side-eyed the methods that Tim was using, which is why probably he would consistently claim he couldn't talk about what was going on with OUR because it was
top secret
missions and all of this very important stuff. He can't tell you what he's doing with it.
I have someone in my family, I won't name who, but he's always like, I was in the military. If I told you what I did, I'd have to kill you. He fixed trucks. So, it's like one of those, I'd have to kill you. What?
Well, maybe he was...
Dude.
He was putting secret files in the trucks?
No, he got a wrench and he put the bulbs in there and that's it. All right.
Okay, well, everyone has to die now. Well, you just put that on the show, so great.
I have to kill everyone
in
this room. And that's a joke I cannot make at the gun range.
Please don't. No jokes about bombs, killing people.
It's in there. I have to say it now.
Anything about, wouldn't it be so funny if I could just right now turn and just shoot you in the temple.
Isn't it funny? Suicide by cop. How hilarious is that, right?
Yeah, get it out right now.
Hey, this is Will Arnett, host of Smartless. Smartless is a podcast with myself and Sean Hayes and Jason Bateman, where each week one of us reveals a mystery guest to the other two. We dive deep with guests that you love, like Bill Hader, Selena Gomez, Jennifer Aniston, David Beckham, Kristen Stewart, and tons more. So join us for a genuinely improvised and authentic conversation filled with laughter and newfound knowledge to feed the Smartless mind. Listen to Smartless now on the SiriusXM app. Download it today.
Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Unlike other brands, Ollie offers 5 flavors that are as nutritious as they are delicious, all made in U.S. kitchens without harmful fillers or preservatives. Head to ollie.com, tell them all about your dog, and use code HAPPYPUP to get 60% off your welcome kit with a bonus. You'll get a storage container for a mess-free experience, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee if your dog doesn't lick the bowl clean.
So, yeah, this was his motive, his go-to, his MO. As soon as the organization started, he's raising money, starting all the way back in 2013. It's just like, I'd have to tell you, but then I'd have to kill you because we're saving these people.
He's just taking the money and getting like dick surgery or something, right?
I wish it was that innocent. It's not. So there were concerns as far back as publicly as 2017, probably sooner, but I know of at least back as far as 2017. And in 2020, this report I'm talking about was basically just reiterating these growing concerns from other people. Of course, like most anything in the world, you know, the government and the police don't really want to get involved if there's claims of exploitation or violence. The driving force is usually, oh, they're stealing money, which is what happened. He was first being questioned about where the money was going, which is whatever, I'll take it, fine, because then it'll help you look into other stuff. So even back then, there were government officials, even in Utah, who were concerned with what was happening to these donor dollars being sent to this nonprofit organization. I'm not going to spend this whole series going over the mountains and piles of receipts and evidence for time's sake, so I can give you your attention. Suffice to say, they are easy to seek out. Vice is a good place to start. Ryan Fisher and Kara Burrell's coverage, who are ex-LDS coverage commentators. Mormon Stories podcast, New York Times, journalist Lynn Packer. These are all people who have compiled receipts, some personal testimonies, all kinds of stuff. There are also the testimonies of the various people who have filed lawsuits, which we will get into. If you want and need right-wing coverage to believe it, Glenn Beck and The Blaze have since turned on Tim Ballard and have covered some of the evidence against him.
The divas are spilling the tea.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
And yet he still has these ardent defenders who will not look at any of this and just say the women are all whores. I mean, like quite literally. So there is so much.
Sounds like they're being a little emotional. Maybe we should lock these men in a cage.
Having their period. Oh, isn't that funny?
I think it's great.
So, not to mention, the LDS Church has denounced Tim Ballard and excommunicated him as of 2023, which I think is more self-serving than anything, but whatever. This is all to say, the cumulative coverage has shown that there is not a lot of evidence to suggest that he has in fact saved any children. In fact, many of the cases he claims credit for involve victims or other agencies who have publicly said that he had nothing to do with the rescues, that they have done. But he is saying, oh, UR helped do this, or this person was saved by me. And then these people who have much smaller voices are saying, that didn't happen, or he wasn't there, or he didn't do this for me.
That's stolen valor, buddy.
100%, but they're being ignored because he's such a boisterous, like bombastic person. This alone, of course, him just making stuff up is alarming and probably criminal. And I have asked and will ask again to please ply me with the evidence that he has done anything with OUR except make sizzle reels and donate other people's money to police forces. I will hear it. I will thank him. And of course, the other thing he's done with OUR and the money is harm women and children, including getting victims thrown into places like Colombian jail. We'll get back to that. Beyond the abhorrent behavior that Ballard has displayed over and over, my personal opinion is that coming from a strict conservative background like Tim has, his fundamental understandings of human trafficking, sexual abuse, and sex work are askew from the get-go. If I personally was ever in a room with Tim Ballard, and I beg I am not, I think the first thing I would do would be to fantasize about kicking him in the balls, but I wouldn't. I would then ask him to define the term human trafficking, because I'm still unclear whether he understands what that is.
Does he think it's just like somebody coming out from the bushes?
Yes, I think partly, but I think the other part that is really tricky for him and maybe a lot of people inside of the LDS church is connected to how they consider sexual sin all the same. And I don't think he understands what he's doing in that world. So I wanted to define human trafficking. And since he's so proud of his time working with Homeland Security, I'm going to give their definition here on the show.
The U.S. government defines human trafficking as sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform the such act has not attained 18 years of age. The recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, personage, debt bondage, or slavery.
So,
like how Dubai was built?
Most of
the world. Yeah, let's just go ahead. Most of the world, yeah.
But yes, definitely Dubai. So I'm bringing this up because it's going to come back up as we go over some of Tim's activities in the coming episodes. But before we get right down to the just blatant, straight across criminal, we would be remiss not to mention the simply bumbling aspects of old Timothee's missions.
He's just a boy.
He's just a little boy. I really do struggle, and I know I said this already in other episodes, but to not connect these guys' efforts, and I'm talking about him, Tom Harrison, Ken Krogh, these guys, with efforts, like their efforts, they feel like the little rascals to me, like pretending to do jobs. And I don't know how else to describe that. I know that I've harped on this, but I'm just so astounded at the childlike, inept confidence they have about stuff like this.
Right. I do marketing software, customer service agency. I get the algorithm out to the masses. Strategic design.
Yes. It does feel like that. And it also feels like that whenever he's talking about doing missions, it's like he's looking at a cartoon version of what that, like he watched G.I. Joe and was like, I got this and no more questions. And, you know, it's that misstepping, I really think, too, on the grander scale that shows why people like this are so angry about initiatives like DEI, because I think they must know on some level that they're acting on pure ego, and that if somebody who had to be so good to even break through to access DEI programs showed up, their own mediocrity would be like so palpable. It would have stink lines coming off of it, you know? And that's why they don't like those programs.
Right. Well, they also think like, oh, your pilot's black? Well, they must have just given him the job. Like there's hours you have to log.
But not only that, if you're black and doing a job that is generally given free willy-nilly to white men, you have to be so exceptional in the first place to even get there, is what I'm saying. So like guys like this that have this idea, this like I'm a hero thing, they need a safe space around them. They need a shell of mediocrity so that nobody will ever question. If somebody comes in who's great at it, they'd be like, wait a second, I think Tim Ballard's just making shit up.
Yeah.
That's besides the point. I'm going off on a tangent. Because what we learn about Operation OUR from the start was that Tim had no idea what he was doing. In September of 2023, Vice released a series of articles, again by Anna and Tim, and this one is entitled
Operation Underground Railroad Child Rescue Missions were based on psychic intelligence.
Come on, Amber. There's no way that's accurate.
I mean, yeah, like something like psychic stuff, I'll go and meditate and be like, I think you need to bring a poncho on your next trip. Like, I'll do like that. But as far as like money going into a huge program like this, that's crazy.
There's no way this purported expert child rescuing organization making tens of millions of dollars in donations is basing their missions off a psychic, right? Right?
I mean, it's kind of funny.
It is if it wasn't so destructive and detrimental to so many people.
You're
but
right.
It's insane. Though this article from Vice came out in 2023, they were reporting on the intel they had received about the mission for looking for Gardy Marty that was being spearheaded by Ballard and OUR all the way back in 2016. So this article came out in kind of response to all of these questions people were having after Sound of Freedom came out, all this stuff. And they're like, hey, there's a bunch of ongoing court cases happening, but we were able to pull some of this stuff from there that's not publicly accessed. And it's showing things like the fact that all the way back when he was like fundraising for OUR and the whole thing was like, we're going to get Gardy Marty, was that they have this video that it is just Tim Ballard, Gardy Marty's dad, and this LDS Utah stay-at-home mom with psychic abilities named Janet Russin.
Where is she? Let's get a good look at her.
So I have it in here, Amber, so you can look at it. If you go to the Vice article, they have these screenshots in. So the whole video has not been released as far as I can tell, but this is screenshots from the video that show Tim and Janet sitting in a car. And this is a trip that they are taking in 2016 in order to find the missing boy, Gardy Marty.
This lady looks like, and I won't say who, another member of my family, who would like draw in her eyebrows blue and would just kind of yell at you for like you don't know why she's yelling. And she has like a lot of deep rooted trauma, but would just like.
Maybe she's also psychic. Maybe she also has, the reason she's upset is because she's getting all these psychic, these forces coming in.
And like not returning the grocery cart back. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No. But she expects you to.
Oh, yeah. No, so that's exactly who it is. And she is the right-hand woman to Tim Ballard, not just being sort of his assistant or being a volunteer to this nonprofit organization. She was being salaried in the six figures for her visions every year. So why don't we go ahead and listen to some of her expert guidance that she was giving Tim over the years to find missing children?
Eclipsed Troy. Troy eclipsed Brad, Tevye, John. Depression and heartache. Sound of Freedom eclipses all the pains of its birth. The due date of this baby is close, and these are the contractions of early labor. The joy of birth is forthcoming. Look to and on that that. Cigars all around, and the ugly cousins will join in the One more time. Cigars all around, and the ugly cousins will join in the celebratory elation of it too. Put this on the assembly line of building blocks and let it be handled by those who know how to assemble widgets. You have meetings with the Tesla man, or men and women of Tesla, Elon, and others like him, like-minded. Shred the unnecessary forms to sign, then in parentheses, the emotional details of the board, etc., close parentheses. Shred them, parentheses, in the shredder, and use the shredding as litter for the guinea pig. You have planes to catch and speeches to give, children to find, rescues to count, and the covenant to support and invoke. End of reading.
What she's doing, what you were just listening to, is almost like a not a train of thought, a stream of consciousness vision she was being given, because if you'll recall, these are all people connected to Tom Harrison in Visions of Glory, as well as child killers Chad and Lori Vallow, as well as Jodi Hildebrandt. These are all the same group of people.
It's just so weird to me that like a psychic is at the top of this, and yet there's all these spiritual stores in like Florida and like small towns where people are trying to like bust in and loot it or destroy it because they're like selling candles and like prayer books.
Well, I think it's because it's more connected to like the feminine women's empowerment.
Oh, right. They hate women. Oh, I forgot. Damn it.
So what Janet is doing here is she does these readings. The one that you just listened to is not the one from the Gardy Marty excursion. That one that you just heard is from 2023. However, what you heard is similar to what she was doing and how they were saying they were going to locate this missing child with OUR. So this reading is not the one that they had when they went out on this wildly expensive rescue mission in 2016 to find Gardy Marty that Vice is talking about, where these screenshots are from, but it is similar to what led them on their first mission for Gardy. I'm not going to torture you. That what you just heard was actually a nearly 7 minutes long of her just doing that.
Rambling.
Going like just doing like scatting. But you can find it online if you want to listen to the whole thing. I think it was originally leaked by Fox 13 News, like somebody leaked it to them. In regards to the search for Gardy Marty, again, that reading you just heard is an example of what she would have done for this search. Vice obtained the video recordings that are a part of this ongoing investigation into OUR, where it showed them going out to find Gardy. And in these videos, which I don't, again, think are available to the public yet, they're in a car. It's Ballard, Janet Rustin, the psychic, and Gardy's father, Gwez Snow, along with a couple assistants. Janet, during these videos, as they're going out to this remote village, is sort of speaking with Gwez Snow, saying, you know, you would have never found him without us here, but we know, we've talked to Spirit, and we know he's out here. We're going to find him. This man whose child is missing.
Now he has hope, and he's like, oh my God, we're going to find it. And then it gets crushed again.
And it's horrible. Like not even hope. It's like they're saying with like full confidence, we're going to go get your son today. Don't worry. And she's talking about how they figured this out for him and all. It's so weird. So Tim and his team, from these visions from Janet, put this rescue mission together that would total in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and involve things like a rescue helicopter, so assured of her visions that Gardy was in this random village, which I don't even know off the top of my head why she chose this village, but it had nothing to do with intel. It was just her dreams. So this is from the Vice article.
In fact, Gardy was not found that day or any day since. There is no evidence to suggest that he was ever in the village where Russin's visions led OUR to his hopeful father. Dave Lopez, a former head of OUR's ops team who oversaw the organization's work in Haiti, told an FBI special agent and a Davis County investigator in October 2020 that Russin's visions were, quote, the only form of intelligence that they were using to locate Gardy, end quote. As far as he knew, he said, OUR had no intelligence even suggesting Gardy was alive, apart from what was provided by Russin. This was Ballard's most guarded secret, Lopez told the FBI. I thought the future we'd have flying cars. I thought we'd have universal health care. I thought we'd have everybody on some kind of special list. So if someone goes missing, it's like easy to locate. Not a psychic doing some kind of con in a village in Haiti, taking people's money.
Well, and you know, there are some futuristic things that are now available. It's just that Tim Ballard wasn't utilizing any of them. He was using his magic LDS man powers.
Because it's his ego. And I think this is why it's okay for this kind of spirituality and not the candle shop spirituality. Because the candle shop spirituality is like, well, what do you think? Write down your intentions. Like, crash your ego. Let's work with each other. And this is very much like,
I'm the king.
I'm the king. I'm the king. Yeah, I know where it is. I know this village. They're never questioning themselves. It's just like, well, I got the vision, so it must be right. And that's why they keep getting away with it.
Yes.
Because it's all built on hierarchy and black and white thinking.
Yes, very much so. So, like the Vice article said, they go to the village. This little boy who's been missing now at that point for, I think, 5 years almost, not there. no reason to think he was there other than their belief that God was talking to them. And their arrogance, like, which is what I think you're just talking about. And yes, it's like legitimately this organization that he had fundraised for the last few years before this 2016 mission, where he had made millions and millions of dollars and said that he was this brave, strong man who understands this more than anybody. And he needs to be the guy that goes in. You know, the scene, are you familiar with The Princess Bride?
You Killed My Father, Prepare to Die?
Yes.
Marriage, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a scene in The Princess Bride where Inigo Montoya is holding his sword and he's asking his dead father to guide his sword to where Wesley is being held in the pit of despair. That is the entirety of Tim's plan for OUR.
Yeah.
But $1 million and it didn't work. Because in at least The Princess Bride, so maybe that's where he's getting his ideas, like, oh, in The Princess Bride, Inigo Montoya,
right? He
asks Dad's guide sword lands on the tree where the hidden passage is. So maybe he's like, falling victim to Rob Reiner.
Well, Inigo Montoya is asking his actual father. Like, he's really like pleading out. This guy is just appealing to his own ego.
Oh, Amber, don't worry. Janet was talking to Tim's great-grandfather in her psychic reading. So
okay.
Don't worry.
Yeah, sure.
That's literally what they say, that she was communicating with Tim's ancestors who were helping guide them. So it's like literally The Princess Bride.
God, this is so scary. I feel like everything I love is getting co-opted by fascists. Like,
well, they don't get to own Princess Bride. That was my own.
That's yours. But what's his face? Some right-wing politician. He always quotes Princess Bride.
Who?
Some guy.
Ew.
I forget his name, but he's like pretty high up there. He likes the marriage.
Literally all leftist people. Like, Rob Reiner is famously a leftist. The guy who plays Inigo Montoya is like one of the most progressive, kind men. Now I can't remember his name.
They're taking it.
I only call him Inigo Montoya, which is very insulting. He's a huge established career.
Yeah,
okay.
They got it. They also got whole milk. I fucking love whole milk.
No, you can have whole. Why do they have whole milk?
I don't know.
You can have it.
I want my own little tarot cards and my little prayers. They took that too.
You can't have. No, they can't. You have that. That you can't. They can't take that from you.
Okay.
Fuck that.
Working out. Love working out. They took that.
No, they don't get to have it.
They don't get to have it.
After the failure of this horrible instance where they've promised this grieving father that they had figured out where his missing son was and they didn't, and they wasted $1 million doing it, you would think that Tim would maybe rethink his strategy of just sort of let go and let God. But he didn't. As you heard from the audio we played a few minutes ago, Janet Russin was with OUR until she left in 2023. So close to a decade where she was being paid yearly, like, 5 teachers' salaries a year to do slam poetry about how epic Tim is at him. So Janet is somebody who is deeply connected to the church higher-ups, and Tim Ballard's relationship with M. Russell Ballard is definitely what I would call questionable. Depending on who you're talking to, M. Russell Ballard or Elder Ballard, who is not related to Tim Ballard, which makes this all the more fun and confusing. Tim Ballard and M. Russell Ballard are not related. But they are deeply connected to OUR together. So Elder Ballard, Tim Ballard speaks of Elder Ballard in a way that is reverent, like he is my mentor, he's my hero. And depending on who you're talking to, Elder Ballard and Tim Ballard are either colleagues or best friends or practically strangers or like family. It just really depends on whose perspective you're trying to reach. We'll never be able to ask Elder Ballard personally what his relationship was with Tim Ballard because he did. He died in 2023, which was really quite an active year for all of the OUR mess. There was a lot going on in 2023. But Elder Ballard, it's not like he had a suspicious death in 2023. He was 95 years old.
He's called Elder for a reason, yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't die like by a weird way, but he was at the time of his death being kind of implicated in some of the bad behaviors of Tim at the time of his death. So I also would love to note just quickly that Elder Ballard, M. Russell Ballard, is the same elder who asked Mormons to blog about the church. We played a clip of him when we were covering family vloggers and mommy vloggers because he's one of the guys who went up on stage and gave a speech about how the Mormons should go forth and blog and vlog their beautiful families to get people into the church, which is not the only reason, but partly why we ended up with a bunch of LDS mommy vloggers. So same elder. Elder Ballard was never the prophet, but was the president of the Quorum of the 12, which is an incredibly high up position in the church, basically right under the prophets in the first presidency. So he was like the toppity-tippity. He gets to go in the big scary building in Salt Lake City and all that. And Tim Ballard, if you hear him speak, says that Elder Ballard was like a grandfather to him. They were very close. The church at this point doesn't like to accept that statement and sort of deflects from him and is sort of like, Tim was using Elder Ballard and Elder Ballard didn't know what he was doing and he was old and he blah, 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 blah. And so they're kind of trying to distance themselves along with Elder Ballard's connection to Tim Ballard at this point. But we'll never know because Elder Ballard's dead. Tim Ballard's not going to tell us the truth. We don't know the full relationship between the two, but it is clear that he did support Tim Ballard's missions and that they did know one another and spend time together. That's not for debate. And if you ask Tim, Elder Ballard was a much bigger part of the entire OUR plan and may or may not have known about some of the darkest aspects of OUR, namely something we're going to get into next episode known as the couple's ruse. So this is going to get really dark.
It sounds pretty dark. It sounds like he's doing the trafficking.
You know, Amber, you're not incorrect. And we're going to come back next episode for just to discuss the definition of what human trafficking is and then compare that to what he was doing.
God, that does make it so mad that people in the comments are like, this is why they're trying to go after Tim Ballard. He's saving the children. He's trafficking the children and the women.
The cognitive dissonance of it, they won't look at it objectively. And it's very frustrating. But I do think it's good for people like Tim Tebow to say these things, to try to disseminate, like to try to break through this idea, which Tim Ballard is perpetuating, that all of these evildoers are out in these impoverished countries and like they're trying to get us and we need to close the borders up, which is something he was fighting for with Trump, which we'll also get into. So it's actually all the white guys in the middle of the country. So we're going to get into that next week, but I want to end this episode talking about how close the church, along with Elder Ballard, again, high up in the church, were connected with Tim's scheming. And it has something to do from an incident we can look at for evidence known as the whiteboard meeting.
Oh, you put a picture right here. I thought it was something from upstairs because we have a whiteboard up here. And I was like, what? No, Ed wrote the Miami Dolphins theme.
Yeah, no, their whiteboard has different things on it than our whiteboard here at LPN. So the whiteboard meeting is an incident that occurred in 2019, and it was leaked because some of the people involved in that day have since deflected, and they are trying to get information about what Tim is doing out to the public. So in 2019, Tim lays out his master plan for fame, glory, and wealth at this whiteboard meeting. It was a private meeting for him and a handful of investors, and the meeting was about how to make money for both himself and the LDS Church in order to boost tithings and membership, which is definitely where your head should be if you're running a child rescuing organization. But because, yes, the master plan that Tim is trying to, display here on this whiteboard was through the lens, through the premise of filtering this profit through child rescue, or at least the concept of image of looking like child rescue. The meeting itself took place in Tim's associate's either home or office. I believe it was his personal home. An LDS priesthood holder, missionary, good old LDS boy named Paul Hutchinson. Paul comes into this story multiple times and not for good reasons. Paul, another LDS guy, deeply entrenched with Tim, is a money man. He's a businessman. He invested in Sound of Freedom. He is deep in Tim's Flavor Aid. They both love the smell of their own farts more than any other scent in the world. They are very closely intertwined. He is there as well. He's at his house. Here's a clearer, if you want to see this whiteboard drawing and also a clearer image of like basically not somebody, it was Lynn Packer, the journalist. You can go to his website. I mentioned it already. Lynn Packer, AmericanCrimeJournal.com. All of this is free for you to observe. He's done years of work on this. So he basically redrew the whiteboard in a more clear image so you can see everything that was written on, because it's written in handwriting in the leaked photo. And you can see what Tim was drawing on this whiteboard. It is a flow chart that sort of resembles a pyramid, and it is talking about how to make money doing all of these things, right?
The top of it says Slave Stealers LLC.
Yeah, it's another
profit.
Yeah, that's what it says at the top. That's sure what it says.
What?
So Slave Stealers is another one of his foundations that he has in cahoots with some of these other guys who are, again, using terms like slaves and Operation Underground Railroad because they're fucking insane. I don't know. They have this complex. They think that they are helping, like it's Harriet Tubman. They are also simultaneously incredibly racist and sexist, but whatever. They are living in their own delusion. And looking at this whiteboard and at this meeting, I don't think that this meeting represents anything illegal per se, at least that I'm aware of. But it's being leaked and being sent out all over the internet because it's a good representation of the mindset of the guys running this shit show, which is how can we turn a massive profit playing white savior? As you can see from this chart, and again, go to AmericanCrimeJournal.com. I will also make social posts on all of this after the season's over. But it shows the three main partners at the top of this money-making scheme would be Tim Ballard, Elder M. Russell Ballard, and then a third guy whose name is Brian Norton. So, go ahead.
Sorry, it also literally says orphanage in Haiti, and it points to timballard.com, 50 to 100K speaking fees, 3-5 new books coming out, Sound of Freedom movie, $2.5 million in the bank account. So it's not, the orphanage in Haiti, it's not about actually helping the kids. Like, logically, if you're looking at this, it's so he wants to push books and make money.
Yeah, and if you were to corner him and talk to him about this, he would say, I'm just trying to make more money because I want to help the kids.
No.
But he has not displayed himself doing that with the already tens of millions of dollars he's made with this company.
It's just ego.
It is pure ego, and in much even darker aspects than this. But this is a good representation of where these people's mindsets are, what their plans are, and what they actually consider the purpose of talking about. You know, you don't want to ever see a profit chart where one side of it says orphanage in Haiti. You know what I mean? Like that in itself is very troubling. So we don't have time. I don't want to lose your attention entirely to break down the entire whiteboard, but please check it out if you have the time. After the season is over, Amber and I are going to be making smaller bites of some of these topics so that if you're taking all this information and you're like, there's so much, we're going to do smaller bites of some video essay kind of things so we can kind of talk about this in a way that is a little bit more visually available. So the reason I'm bringing it up here is because Tim's connection to Elder Ballard is important in a number of ways. It implicates the church to an extent, but even more so, what transpired between them is displaying what can happen when you let mysticism seep too deeply into real-world humanitarian efforts. Because when we come back next week, we're going to have to delve into some of the worst of the Ballard saga. His drug abuse, his many, many rape and assault allegations, his mishandling of human rescue, and how it may have been indirectly sanctioned by the church through a sacred temple ceremony.
Wow, fuck these guys. That's why he was so sweaty and red. Drugs.
Yep. And I mean, alleged drug use and alleged alcoholism.
Alleged. Like these kind of guys, I'll go on a date sometime and I'll ask like, hey, what do you want for the future? Or just talking to people, not necessarily a date, just talking to like a random guy and he's like, I want to make a lot of money. And then it always comes to like insidious reasons why. Like they're not going to build an orphanage or a library or help people in any way. It's so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. I would argue that a guy, and we haven't talked about this yet, but we will, like Tim Ballard, who sees himself as both the future prophet of his church and the president of the United States of America, which is very much real.
If he fucking runs for president.
He won't now, but he was going to. He was trying to.
That is crazy. And people, they fall for it. I mean, I've fallen for some things. I paid a MacBook virus $50 once.
Girl, wait until you hear next episode who was yes-anding his delusions. Coming up next week, while giving parents false hope is egregious and harmful in itself, deceit comes in many forms for Tim Ballard. Next week, we introduce the concept of the couple's ruse and discover whether Tim Ballard is the real human trafficker.
Finding the music you love shouldn't be hard. That's why Pandora makes it easy to explore all your favorites and discover new artists and genres you'll love. Enjoy a personalized listening experience simply by selecting any song or album, and we'll make a station crafted just for you. Best of all, you can listen for free. Download Pandora on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start hearing the soundtrack to your life.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from, is it possible, to anything is possible by offering access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, so you can reach your goals affordably and fast. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen eds provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.